This is day number 27 of the 30-Day Solo Podcast Challenge. I'm David Hooper from bigpodcast.com, and my job is to help you grow a big audience for your message. The way we're doing that on this series, it's via podcasting. This series of episodes will help you clarify your message, which is the number one thing you can do to attract and build a great audience. You're going to improve your delivery. You're going to sound so smooth on the mic when you get done. You're going to go back to that first episode you recorded with me. You're going to say, is this the same person? I can't believe it, because you sound so good now. You're going to have more flexibility with your podcasting. When you've got solo podcasting skills, you can release episodes when you want, change things up when you want, record when you want. You can do anything when you've got solo podcasting skills. You're also going to build skills that translate elsewhere: speaking, email, blog posts, communication with your family. All of these things are going to get better because of what we're working on in this series. If you have not heard the first episode, that's the intro episode. You need to listen to that. That explains the what and the why of everything happening here. Bigpodcast.com/subscribe has that and all 30 exercises of the 30-Day Solo Podcast Challenge. It's free to you. Bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Previously, day number 26, we talked about your toolbox. Why do we do that? Because people listening to you feel like they know you. They want to know the behind the scenes, the stuff they feel is special. How do you do what you do? What are the tools that you use? Sharing that information is a great way to connect with the people who are listening to you on a completely different level. So if you haven't finished that exercise, go back to day 26. Again, bigpodcast.com/subscribe has that episode and every episode in this series. Today, the focus is you. Here's the question for you to answer. What do you want people to know about you? Here's why this is important. Letting people know about you is what attracts people to you, or on the flip side of that, repels people from you. You want to attract the right listeners to your podcast. You want to attract the right people to work with, the right companies to sponsor you. And by broadcasting a few things about yourself, that's going to help you do all of these things. We have preconceived notions about things. I want you to think about cars for a minute. What do you think about when you see a big car on the road? You think something about the driver. You think something about the environment. You think something about the space this guy takes up. Maybe you're in a smaller car next to a big car. You're thinking, I sure hope this big car doesn't hit me. What do you think of when you think of a luxury car and the person in that luxury car? We all have thoughts anytime something is communicated to us, and that could be via words, how somebody dresses, the posture somebody has, body language. There are a lot of ways that we communicate, and we've got thoughts and judgments about those things. Think about a Prius. Everybody knows that a Prius is a hybrid, and the newer ones are actually plug-ins. You plug them in an outlet, they're completely electric, no gasoline for the time that battery is charged up. But the guts of a Prius are now being used in other car models. Toyota Estima, the Yaris, Corolla, Lexus 400, Toyota Highlander, speaking of those bigger cars. Even the bigger cars have these hybrid capabilities. Subaru Crosstrek, the hybrid version, has the guts of a Prius inside it. And there was a problem with some of these cars. And that problem, it had nothing to do with the cars, the engine, the experience of driving the cars. It had to do with the way people who saw these cars on the road felt about them. Even though the guts of these cars is primarily the same thing that was inside of a Prius, when people saw the Toyota Estima, the Yaris, the Corolla, the Lexus 400, the Toyota Highlander, the Subaru Crosstrek, they felt differently about those cars than they did the Prius. Why is that? They didn't know they were hybrids. Owners didn't like that. What's the point of buying a Prius if people don't know that it's a Prius? A lot of people think that way. Look at designer clothes, those big logos we wear. We want people to know that we spend a lot of money on these clothes. And when we buy a hybrid car, it better be obvious that it's a hybrid car. And here was the solution. They got a sticker on the outside of those cars, an emblem, something that lets people know it's a hybrid. They made it bigger. You, by telling people what you want people to know about you, and putting these things inside of the stories and these elements that we've been talking about during this series, you are letting people know who you want to work with, how you work, how much you charge, what it's like to work with you. This is very important. Let me give you an example. I want you and the people that I work with to know a few things about me. I want you to know that I've got a background in the entertainment business. I want you to know that I'm an in-the-trenches guy as far as podcasting. This podcast, it's recorded by me, it's planned out by me, outlined by me, recorded by me, edited by me. Post-production, that's by me. I upload it myself. Episode notes, by me. I am in the trenches when it comes to this podcast. I want people to know that I'm also on broadcast radio and to bring that experience to my work. I want you to know that I have a book. I want you to know that I'm not the cheapest marketing consultant that there is. If you're hiring me to help you spread your message, I'm not going to be the cheapest. But because of the experience that I have, I'm going to get the job done right. And in the end, that's going to be less expensive than the guy who's giving you a bargain rate. I also want you to know that the people with whom I work are serious about their work. I'm not for the dabblers. I take what I do very seriously, and the people with whom I work, they take what they do seriously. Let's go back to the first 3 or 4 things on this list. I've got a background in the entertainment industry. You knew that because I talk about it. I incorporate that into the stories that I'm telling. I'm an in-the-trenches guy as far as podcasting. If you've been in this series with me, you knew that too. Yesterday, the toolkit episode, talked about the toolkit that I use to create these episodes, exactly how I do it. I've talked about my broadcast radio show a few times on this series. I've talked about the book that I've written about podcasting on this series. I weave these things in and out of the stories that I tell. Just like those stories that we've been working on together, you're going to weave those things in and out of your regular podcast content. You can see how this all fits together. I don't want you to start an entirely new podcast. I want you to do the exercises and maybe upload things on a completely different thread for the 30-day solo podcast challenge. But what I really want to do is I want you to incorporate these things into the podcast and into the business and into what you already have going on. I don't like to take people off their paths. I like to assist you in the path that you're on and make it a clearer path and a more effective path and a path that's going to make you money and help you spread your message in a bigger, bolder, and more impactful way. Here's your action step for today. This is a little bit different. There's no beginning, middle, and an end to this one, but I do want you to grab a pen and a piece of paper. Here's what you're going to do today. I want you to write down 10 things that you want people to know about you. This could be common stuff. Common stuff attracts people, or else it repels people. An example of that, I'm vegetarian. And I have no doubt that I have mentioned that once or twice on the 30-day solo podcast challenge. It comes up all the time. And the reason I do that is because it attracts a lot of people. It's me planting the flag, and it can be a very simple message. I went to a vegetarian restaurant, had some kale, veggie burger, and then continue the story as normal. And I will get emails and tweets and other messages that say, hey, you're a vegetarian? I'm a vegetarian too. And we've got that instant rapport. You have something like that as well. And I want you to think of 10 of these things that you want to broadcast to the people who are listening to you. Maybe it's your religion or spiritual beliefs, your location. I've mentioned being from Nashville. Think about when you meet somebody. They say, I'm from Boston. Oh my God, I went to college in Boston. Instant rapport. Political beliefs. Talk about divisive. But if you can match the political beliefs of the people that you want to work with, you're good. Where I am in Nashville, we've got a suburb, the next county over. It's called Franklin, Tennessee. It's so quaint. It's like going to Mayberry. And there are a lot of people out there. They've got podcasts. They've got blogs. Maybe you've listened to some of them. Maybe you've read their books, read their blogs. They telegraph these very things. I'm a patriotic American. I'm conservative. I'm a Christian. And they live in a small town called Franklin, Tennessee. And there are tons of people that love it. For a little bitty town, you would not believe the number of seminars, the people with huge mailing lists, huge book deals, huge podcasts. It's unbelievable. And part of that is some guy there started it, and it attracted not only the listeners, that are listening to their stuff or the readers that are reading their stuff. It attracted other people to join in and actually move to this little town. And that makes the whole thing even bigger because they join in and start doing the same thing, telegraphing these beliefs. You might want to talk about your family setup. Being single may help you, depending on your market and who your listeners are. Being married might help you. You probably don't want to take marriage advice from a single guy. And unless you're a married man yourself looking to step out on your wife, you might not want to take advice on how to pick up women from a married man. Sexual orientation, anything you see on a demographic form, if you telegraph that to people, there are those who have that same box that they're checking on that same demographic form that are going to connect to you. It's how you work, it's who you work with, it's the political beliefs you have, the spiritual beliefs that you have, how much you charge, what the process is like. Think of 10 of these things, write them down, and start weaving them into the stories that you tell people. I said at the beginning of this that going through the 30-Day Solo Podcast Challenge, it's not just about your podcast. You're learning skills that will help you with blog entries. You're learning skills that will help you with your communication, live speeches, books that you write, emails. Weave these things in there. Just casually mention them. Oh, this is the vegetarian restaurant having a veggie burger. That's enough. That starts the conversation, and it shows your humanity, and it shows you're bigger than the main topic of your podcast. That's it for today. Right now, before you start listing those things and weaving them into your stories, here's what I want you to do. Go to bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Subscribe to this podcast. That way you won't miss what's coming up. We're almost done. Almost. Day 27 of 30. 3 more episodes, and we will be done. Like I said, when we get to day 30, you're going to go back to that first recording. You're not going to believe how great you sound now, how much you've improved. That's what happens when you show up every day and you do the work. So go to bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Get the entire series, and while you were there, get my free podcast toolkit, 25 episode templates. I've got social media templates to help you connect to people via social media. I've got my guest process. When you interview people, this is going to make that process so much easier, getting good people in to interview. It'll make sure you attract good people to do interviews with, and make sure you get good interviews on tape, things that you can actually work with. It's all at bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Thank you for listening. I'll see you on the next episode of the 30-Day Solo Podcast Challenge.